Good morning, everybody. It's Nanny from Nanny and the Moose, and today I'm hanging out in my bedroom, and we're going to talk about some of the traditions and foods from all over the world, including a little of some baking that I've done, and of a few of these, and I think it's going to be fun. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I've been doing the last couple days, and I think you'll enjoy it. Some of the traditions that a lot of you are aware of here in the United States are the traditional baking cookies, gingerbread men. What else do? We make gingerbread houses. Of course, we have Santa Claus, and the little children love to sit on Santa's lap. The little children of the world still look forward to Christmas Eve and putting the carrots out for the reindeer. And we also have a manger, a stable. We have an advent calendar here in the United States for most of the people. We also have Hanukkah. And I made latkes, potato latkes, which are served during the holidays of Hanukkah. I think Hanukkah might end tomorrow. And they were delicious. Moose and I adored them. I was trying to save time because I realized that we're 1 week from Christmas Eve. And I didn't want to go through grating the potatoes, and I couldn't find my grater to begin with. So I realized that I had some hash browns in the freezer. They're very similar to the Irish boxties and the English potato pancakes and all over America. But I do have a hack. And the hack is not peeling potatoes, but using a bag of hash browns. You can put all kinds of topping on them. So I'm going to start frying up the onions first, and we'll begin. And we're going to see how this hack comes out. I'm really kind of pressed for time, so I'm going to try this, and then we'll probably try the real kind. While the onions are sauteing, I'll mix the egg and the flour, and then put the hash browns in. First, I mixed up a little egg with a little flour. Then I added the onions and the hash browns, put them in some oil, and they were frying beautifully. They don't look too bad. They held together when I turned them over after about 3 or 4 minutes. Could have probably used a little extra egg to hold them together a little better, but I think they're okay. Well, they look pretty yummy to me. I put the chives and the sour cream and a little bit of applesauce on the side. Moose can dig in and let me know. They were absolutely out of this world. And Moose and I think, had 6 each. I can't believe we did, but we did. So I'm going to be making those more throughout the year. So I think there's a Polish Rumplestumps, I think they call them. They make them all very similarly with the raw grated potatoes. I will recommend this. It's not so hard to grate the potatoes if you can find your grater. I had several problems yesterday in baking with some appliances, which I'll tell you about. But that was fun. But going to some of the other traditions of some of the countries in Europe, we lived in Scotland for 3 years. and it's very similar to the English Christmas. You serve, so far as the foods, you serve mince pies. You usually have a goose or a turkey on Christmas Day. Of course, the traditional American meal starts with the turkey and the stuffing and everything again. We won't be doing that this year. I did that on Thanksgiving, and I'm not going to be doing that again. But the traditions are also very similar to Santa Claus. I think they call him Father Christmas in England and Scotland, and also in Ireland. We spent a couple of years with the whole family, 2 weeks at Christmastime, and that was wonderful. Some of those particular, the goose, actually we had a turkey that year, and always end with the mince pies. I do have some mince pies here. I didn't make them, but someone had given us some, and I'm going to pull those out maybe later on and show you one or two of them, but they're delicious. We did spend one Christmas in England when we went over to pick up Colleen. She had spent a semester abroad, and we had the traditional Christmas lunch in London, and it started with the crackers. That you pull apart, take out the paper hats, and I've put some photos on as we go through the video to show you some of this. Always start with prawns, shrimp cocktails, and the dinner was, I believe, turkey. I even put the menu. I had to save the menu. So one of my favorites, and I've never been there, but we have a granddaughter who lived in Sweden for a couple of years. The Scandinavian Christmases are wonderful. Of course, it's dark, and they go sledding, and there's tons of snow, and the traditions of lights are very important in Sweden, because in the wintertime, it's dark a lot of the daytime, so they love the lights in the windows. Now, they go along with the Dutch, the German, and some of the Scandinavian countries, and the little children put their shoes or their boots on the fireplace or at the end of their bed on, I believe it's December 5th. Or 6th. And Father Christmas, Kinderklaus, I think he's called, comes and puts candies and chocolates and little tiny things in, and they look forward to that more than the actual Christmas day. So they get presents twice. By the way, isn't this beautiful? He is probably 8 to 10 inches tall, maybe not 10, 8 or 9, and I hope I'm going to be able to do this. I've had this myself for 30 or 40 years, and it must be even older than that. Great, isn't it? A real, honest to goodness vintage cookie cutter of a great gingerbread man. And if I could make just maybe 6 of these big gingerbread men, I would be happy to give them to some of the little tiny children, maybe if we get to see anybody before Christmas Eve. The other thing I wanted to share with you, look how my amaryllis is coming along. Now, see the fat things coming up? This is a bud. These are just leaves. And there's another bud over here coming up. I don't know whether we'll have flowers for Christmas, but it's sure fun watching this. Colleen has one, Matthew has one, and we're having a race to see whose comes up first. Colleen's is about 10 inches high. She might be winning. But this is the one that Matthew gave me. And then I have this other one that Colleen gave me. Let me reach over for it. And this is really interesting. Oh, some of the snow came off. This is in wax. This is a ball of wax. You don't even have to water this one. I can't believe it. Colleen got these at Trader Joe's, but look how big this one is. Now this is a nice fat. These will grow into flowers that are probably 6 to 8 inches big, and we usually get 5 or 6. Right now I have 2 coming up, and if I look down in there, there might be another one coming up. But this is so far is my biggest one. Now these stalks will grow, will get probably this long before they start budding out. They do get quite long. So I wanted to share these with you, and it's so fun every day. Matthew and Cindy are having fun. They measure it with a tape every day. It's just something to brighten your spirits and give you something to do every day. Now I'm looking at my notes here to make sure that I talk about what I wanted to talk about. And one of the things that I tried to bake yesterday was the traditional Yule log. I'm doing another baking hack today. I'm going to make the holiday log, Yule log, which the French call bûche de Noël, I believe. Hope I pronounced that right. And I'm doing a hack. Instead of making the cake according to the directions, which should be a little bit more like a sponge cake, I'm using a box mix because I have to save time with all I have to do. It says to put it on a nice big cookie sheet that has a little bit of a rim because the cake will rise, and to put it on parchment paper. Now I did have Matthew pick up parchment paper because you can use parchment paper in the oven. The reason you do that is as the cake cools, you roll up this cake from the short end here all the way up this way after you put your, I think you put it in the refrigerator, but we'll get to that later. And then unroll it, and then we put the filling on top, and it's a beautiful Yule log. Now we'll get to everything else after we bake it. I'm very anxious to see how this is going to bake. Just took the cake out of the oven, and it seems thin enough. The parchment paper is underneath it. I did not use the whole box. In fact, I had enough left over of the cake mix after I mixed it with everything, and I made 8 tiny cupcakes, little mini cupcakes. So it wasn't the full mixture, and on the ends it does seem nice and pliable and thin, which is what we want for rolling. Whether you can see it, I hope the middle goes down a bit. So it has to completely cool before you roll it up and put it in the fridge and leave it there for a while, and then you unroll it and put the filling in. Which is a tradition in France. I think in France it's called bûche de Noël, but they also have Yule log all over Europe. They love to make their Yule log, and it's made with a very rich chocolate cake and a wonderful creamy filling with mascarpone cheese, I believe it is, which I didn't have and couldn't find, excuse me. So I did a hack, which was a disaster, and I used cream cheese and heavy cream and a bit of ricotta cheese, and reached in the drawer to get out my immersion blender and whip it all up. I might have even put an egg in there, and not following a recipe, thinking I was Julia Childs or somebody or other, and took out my immersion blender and went to plug it in. This thing, which, like so many of my things, this has to be, I think I got it in 1990 as a gift on a television show called The Home Show. My daughters and I had a business at the time, retail business, and a catalog, national catalog. And we went to this show, the morning show, and we were picked to be some of the people that they interviewed. mainly because at the beginning, when you're standing outside on these TV shows, you fill in a little paper and they ask you questions. And one of the questions was, where is your wedding dress? Well, that's funny. Oh, it's so hard to cross my legs on a bed. I hadn't realized that. My wedding dress, I had made into lampshades, and I'm going to show you my lampshade one of these days, years ago. Plus, I cut it up to put on all these little stockings that I started making. I think I've already made almost 50 for the family. I started when Colleen was about 9 or 10 years old, and I make these stockings, and I put pieces of, for all the girls, I put pieces of my wedding dress and the tiny buttons going down the back, and other beautiful trims and things. And then they're red velvet, big, and I think I've showed you pictures of these, but I'll show them to you. And the boys all have green velvet, and I trim them. They don't get the wedding dress, but they get pretty Scandinavian braids and trims and things. And then that each one gets one as they come along, and as the grandchildren were born, they got a stocking and went on, great-grandchildren. And then they put their own things on there, pins that meant something, little awards. Some of the stockings that these children have trimmed are just out of this world. But as usual, I digress here, and I can't even remember how I got to Christmas stockings. My wedding dress. So my wedding dress is on stockings, pieces of it. But the main thing, it's in an old Victorian shade that I had a woman make for me. And my other daughter, Dub, hers was out in our barn. It was stored out there, and she said that. And Margie had another clever one. We used hers to make christening dresses for her sons, which I did make christening dresses out of the daughter's wedding dresses. And I'll show those to you someday too. But at any rate, all three of us were picked to be interviewed on the show. And somewhere there's a video of all this. And when they heard, of course, it was a big laugh, especially the one that's in the barn and the one that was all cut up and made a lampshade. But we each got a gift. And this was my gift. And I'll bet this was in 1990, because it was during the time we had our business going. So anyway, I went back to the baking. Bill says I do this all the time. I lose track of what I'm talking about. So I had this mixture made for the filling for the cake. And by the way, I did take little videos as I went along doing this, and you'll see this. I went to pull out my immersion blender, which is, I don't have one of those big blenders or the big mixing bowls and things. And it's always worked really well for cheesecakes and various things. I don't use it too awfully much. I plugged it in. Guess what? It wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work. Just like I couldn't find my blender to do the potato Latkes. I just couldn't find it. So I tried whipping with my what do you call that? The little whipper thing. And it just wouldn't pluff up or whatever. So I had to throw some more cream cheese in. I tried to throw more ricotta in, some sugar to sweeten it up, until I got a fairly decent, what I thought was decent, filling for this big cake that I made. Number one, I didn't make the real cake according to the directions. I used a cake mix. And you make it in a big 17 by 12 cookie sheet that has a little... now I'm talking about the Yule log, in case you lost my train of thought here, which I almost did. Has a little lip on it so it doesn't go over. And you use parchment paper. And I put it in the oven, and it did well. It baked. And I thought, okay, we're ahead of the game here with my baking hack. And then you have to roll it up. Well, that was a little bit of a chore. And we'll talk about that when I show you the video that I've made. I included another clip. I was telling Moose last night, as we had leftovers that oozed out of the sides of this Yule log. Well, I baked it for about 25 minutes, took it out, lifted the parchment paper, with the cake inside out of the pan, and probably within about 5 minutes, you're not supposed to let it cool completely. Within about 5 minutes, while it was still warm, I started rolling it up. It did beautifully. It didn't crack, roll tightly. Moose and I together, it was a two-man job, wrapped it up, and I believe now we put it in the refrigerator. I'll have to check. So now I'll begin making the filling. Now the mixture of the ricotta cheese, the cream cheese, and the heavy cream and sugar is in. The filling is on, and now let's hope that we can roll it up without the parchment paper this time, and then we wrap it in plastic wrap. As I was trying to roll it up with this filling that kept oozing out the ends, and I would take a chunk from this end as I was trying to roll it and pop it in my mouth or pop it on a plate, and a chunk from this end. And do you remember the TV show with Lucille Ball and Ethel? It was the iconic one where they were in a candy factory. They had jobs. They had these chef hats on. And they were, the conveyor belt was going along, and all of a sudden it started to speed up, and they were supposed to be putting these chocolate candies and things into a box and fill them up, but they got ahead of themselves, and she was popping them in her mouth and down the front of her dress, and it was hysterical. I remember watching it when I was young, and I found it on the internet as a Giphy. You know, a Giphy's like an emoji, but it's a little short video, and I'm going to include it in this, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Well, I finally got the whole thing rolled up. Moose helped me tie it up, and you're supposed to put it in a refrigerator. Now, this is the Yule log, remember. It's still in the refrigerator, rolled up with the filling. Now I have to take it out and put the final ganache on, which I have to make, and I'm not going to deviate from the recipe this time. And then you take a fork and you make it look like a log, and you decorate it with some cherries and greens. But it was really funny. So guess what we had for dessert last night in bed? I brought out all the chunks of, and it was nothing but mush, of the chocolate cake and the oozing filling, which, by the way, was delicious. It tasted like a cream, a cheesecake that never. I tried to bake it and it wouldn't even rise because I don't think I had egg whites in there, and Bill loved it. So it's just a big mushy lump of chocolate cake. We finished it up last night, so maybe in a couple of days. I can hardly lift this. Guess what this is? This is my Yule log, my bûche de Noël. It must weigh 5 pounds. And I know it's not supposed to, but I bet you it'll be delicious. I've had it in the refrigerator all rolled up, and of course now it has the filling in it, and I've had it in there overnight hoping that the filling will not ooze anymore when I start cutting it, but I'm still going to make it look like a log. It's long enough to cut 3 inches off and put an appendage on the side to make it look like a growth coming out of the log. And then I'll get some rosemary, and I'll do some of this candied sugar on the rosemary, and maybe I have a holly bush. I'll get some holly and some red berries and decorate it. Hopefully before Christmas Eve, I will show you the finished product of my Yule log. The beautiful tradition in Sweden of the, and I think it's done on St. Lucia's Day. On St. Lucia's Day, which I think is December 13th, the oldest daughter in the family is usually a child of, I don't know, 10, 12, dresses in a white dress. little girls in the family, and big girls, dress up. And they have a crown, a beautiful crown of greens. It's like a wreath on their head with white candles sticking around. Now, nowadays, I would hope they'd be battery lit, if they even lit them. And traditionally, that morning, they make these buns. And the tradition is that the oldest daughter parades in with the other daughters with the crown and these, and coffee and buns, and brings it to the mom and dad in bed. And I love that. And we did that one year with Colleen when she was young. And I'd like to redo some of these traditions. That's a beautiful tradition in Sweden. And I think most of the Scandinavian countries. I love the one about filling the shoes from Germany and some of the Eastern European countries. Now, in our family, we have a granddaughter-in-law who is of Mexican descent, and she and her family make the most wonderful tamales every year. In fact, I think they did them last week. I don't think I asked Brianna in time to get it. I think they did do a little family video, and they looked so delicious. But that in Mexico and many of the southwestern states, a big tradition at Christmas time is making tamales. Another daughter-in-law, Sabrina, has her father was from Scandinavia, and I can't remember whether it's Denmark or Norway. And many's the time when we've been with them on Christmas, she will make this beautiful souffle, and I forget the name of it, but it's very Norwegian or Scandinavian, and it puffs up, and it's a lot of eggs and flour, and you serve it with maybe a maple syrup. Or whipped cream or something, and our family loves it. Sabrina and Mikey made 3 or 4 of these one of the years that we were in Ireland for Christmas, and we all sat and loved that. That's a big tradition from Scandinavia. Another daughter-in-law is from the Philippines, and she was telling me some of the, I think you know Bonnie, because I've talked so much about Bonnie's great cooking. Bonnie and Bill live up in Idaho in a beautiful ranch on the Clearwater River. And Bonnie cooks like you wouldn't believe. And a lot of her cooking is Filipino inspired. And she was telling me the other day that what they do at Christmas time is they have the roast pig. Now, one time when we were in Florida, staying with Micah and Colleen. Micah, Colleen's husband, is a TV news anchorman. And when he was working in Florida, in Miami, they had Cuban neighbors, and we were invited over that Christmas when we were down there to share in this roasted pig. That is a tradition, I believe, in Puerto Rico, Costa Rica, the Philippines, and various other countries. Delicious, big Christmas tradition. Now, Bonnie also told me that they do something called, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, pancit, which is a spaghetti, a pasta meal with spices in it and all sorts of things. To me, it's similar to almost like a chop suey or chow mein. And we had it when we were in Idaho. It's out of this world. She also makes these dough-filled things that are, I think, called empanada. So within our own family, we do have a lot of foods and traditions that are inspired from other countries. I will narrate some of the baking to show you, and I've put some clips of, not clips, I keep saying that, clips are videos, but these are photos of some of the nice traditions of other countries. I'm getting, you know, I tried to sit on the bed and cross my legs, like, you know, cross-legged. Remember when you used to be able to sit cross-legged? Tried to do that this morning and didn't work. Couldn't get, and I'm limber. This leg will go over that way. And then if I tried to bring the other leg the other way, I'd fall over, so. Thank you so much for watching. This has been fun coming from my bedroom. I hope you're enjoying your days leading up to Christmas. It's a tough one, but there are ways that we're going to be able to see children and grandchildren. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and joining our aging successfully journey. We have a lot of fun. We do a lot of things. We're a little more on the go when COVID's not around, but there are many things that we can keep doing to keep our spirits up, and I hope you're all doing that. It's difficult, but remember, we're a family, and we can support each other. Thank you again for watching. I love you all. God bless.